Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Espresso Outlet YouTube channel. My name is Barrett. Today we're going to do something a little bit less fun, or some people might think it's less fun. I got this Alex Duetto the other day, and I also got a water filtration system. So if you're not running a good water softener and filtration system, it's very important to keep your espresso machine running. If you don't have soft water in your area, you definitely need to get a water softener. Best thing to do is probably contact a company and see if they have some test kits, or you can order some test strips from us. They're really not that expensive. You'll usually just run it under some water and wait about 30 seconds and look at a color chart. It's pretty straightforward, but very important. So consider buying this with your machine. It's really not that expensive of an adder. Today I have, it's a $140 water filtration kit. So we're just gonna open it up real quick, and then we're gonna do a quick install. We'll put this off to the side. Came in 2 boxes. Let's just unbox it real quick. Comes with some brackets. So these are the brackets that are gonna hold our canisters to the wall, and a shutoff valve and some PEX tubing. It also comes with a filter wrench. So we'll take a closer look at all that in a bit. I believe this is our water softening cartridge. We'll double check when we install it. And then we have a filtration cartridge, which just kind of takes the chlorine and stuff out of the water. And then we have our 2 filter canisters. So pretty straightforward canisters. My second box has some additional filters in it. So usually these filters, I've had one of these exact same systems at my house for roughly probably 2 years. And I test it about every month, and it's still going pretty strong. I only use it for my espresso machine. So if you're not running tons of water, I believe most of these do like 30 to 50 gallons of water. So if you're not using it a lot, it should last quite a while. So maybe pick up an extra filter, or just maybe wait, because these are pretty standard filter cartridges. So let's take a look at the installation next. All right, so with everything unboxed, it might as well take a look, make sure that you got everything in your kit. The instructions actually show what all should come in the kit. Let me flip it back a page. So it's all in the instructions. If you go to the last page, it has the configuration. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find a water line, and usually what's best is to find where your water line for your sink is. And they supply this adapter. And this adapter is really easy to install. It's just a T-shaped adapter. So this is where your water line is going to be, and this is where it's going to continue on to your sink. And then you're going to stab into this PEX fitting with one of these shark bite fittings. Sometimes they're like a John Guest fitting, I believe they're called. So just a quick connect, you push it in, and that's it. So really simple to install this T connector. There is 2 shutoff valves. It's a good idea to put one before and after. So you're gonna put one somewhere between your first cartridge and your sink. And then afterwards, you're gonna need something to shut off your espresso machine or other equipment. It's really nice that they included 2. I believe my first kit only came with 1. So very nice that they have that. We also have 2 brackets. These are just metal brackets that you'll screw to the wall. And make sure to lay all this stuff out on the wall before putting it all together. You might just throw 1 screw in the top of the cartridge. They screw in like so, and you can hang it on the wall and lay everything out so that you make sure everything fits before you commit to screwing it to your wall. And then lastly, we just have our filters, and we're not going to worry about these until the very end. You do get a coil of PEX tubing. You may need some additional fittings. And the only reason I say that is if for whatever reason your sink doesn't work with this fitting, or maybe your espresso machine requires more tubing to get to from your kitchen sink, maybe it's across your kitchen or something, you may have to go to the hardware store and buy some. Now, I find that these fittings, their sizing can be a little bit confusing. So usually what I recommend doing is bringing just a small piece of this tubing with you and say, this is the size that I need, and that'll make it a lot easier just in case you get confused at the hardware store. You don't want to have to go back, preferably. So next steps, we're going to start laying this out. I'm actually going to lay mine out slightly differently because I actually have a PEX supply line So I'm not going to use this fitting. I'm actually going to just use a straight connector into the end of it, but that's really the only difference in this installation. So let's stay tuned. Okay, so this is where I think I'm going to install my filters. I actually have a cold water PEX line right here, so that's going to make really easy connection with a ball valve. I did go ahead and screw the brackets to the top. I just use 2 screws for now, and I want you to know the in and the out. I don't want you putting it backwards because that's really important. Now I'm opting to stack my filters. So I'm planning to do it like this. So definitely want the in and the out to be correct, just so that I can save some room. So that's how I'm planning to mount them here in a minute. Now, if you're going to do them side by side like this, you would want it to go in, out, and you can just put a little piece between them. Either is totally acceptable. Okay, as I previously mentioned, you may need to hit up the hardware store. In my case, I needed to get a 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch reducer. I will let you know that this tubing, I've been kind of burned in the past where I'll think it says 1/4 inch, and there's actually, depending on the brand, they kind of have different measurements that they go off of. One goes off the outer diameter, one goes off the inner diameter. So make sure, I usually cut off a piece and bring a piece of the PEX that I'm working with, just so I don't buy the wrong thing. Today, we got this hooked up. If I didn't have this ball valve right here, this is a really nice ball valve, I would opt to use one of the valves that were supplied, and we would put that in line right there. Since we have the other valve, we don't really need it. As I mentioned before, if you were utilizing a sink, my sink has a shutoff like this. So I decided to just use this that was already here. But if it did not, you would have that go into the fitting, and then you would have that go to your filtration system, and then that would continue onto your cold water in your sink. So they have it set up. Mine's just a little bit different at this shop. So you may end up having to do a little bit of an adaptation. So to wrap this up, we have it going in, out, and then what we'll need to do is have our final out that goes to our espresso machine. And in this case, we're going to have it go to this Alex. So we may end up wanting to cut this eventually. Today, I'm not going to. We have our Alex over here. Let me pan over. So I don't want to cut off too much of this yet, but to wrap this up, all we would do is simply connect it like so. Last but not least, we need to open up our filters and install them. That's a pretty quick process. Let's get that done. So grab your instructions and make sure you understand which filter goes first. In this instance, we want to do our water softener first, followed by the carbon filter. So in this kit, the water softener is blue, has an indication that this side up. So we'll want to go ahead and unscrew this canister. And place it in the proper orientation. Next, we have our carbon filter. Sometimes it'll say like a coconut carbon. Let's get that installed. There is no orientation on these, I don't believe. If you would like, I don't recommend going too crazy with it, but I do leave this wrench nearby and just snug these filters up. I usually just kind of place it on top like so. So that's the main installation. Next, what we'll do is we'll just turn on the water and we'll test for leaks. I usually pressurize it for 24 hours, but usually just when I'm around. And once I'm around enough and I know that it's not going to leak, I'm usually pretty confident to leave it on. So let's just test it real quick. And I just like to crack the valve because I don't like all the air going into these. And if you'd really like, maybe what's the best to do is to purge it not into your machine, but actually into a sink. So it's actually filling these up and getting the filters going. The reason why I don't want to do that straight into the machine is you will see some black come out, and that's just powdered carbon from your carbon filter. So it's not going to hurt you or anything, but I definitely like to just give it a nice flush prior to using it. So we're going to have this flush for just a minute, and we'll hook it back up to this Alex. Okay, so we just got this hooked up. Make sure to tighten that fitting on the bottom of your machine if you haven't already done so. And you could hear the water filling the reservoir. I set the machine to run off of a water supply line versus the tank reservoir. So we're set up to run off of like a city water and use our water filtration system. So thanks for watching. I hope this helps out. It's kind of not the most fun video, but it's a pretty easy installation. Give yourself some time. It looks fairly simple, but you'll want to think it out, understand the components. You may need to go to the hardware store. I don't think I've ever installed a filtration system, and I also have an RO at my house without having to go to the hardware store to get a couple of additional fittings just for your specific need. But it's pretty simple. I mean, you don't really need that many tools. In my case, I have a brick wall, so I needed a hammer drill, but most people, they're just gonna be screwing it underneath like a kitchen cabinet. So I recommend just like a standard drill, maybe a crescent wrench, maybe some Teflon tape, depending on how you connect to your water supply. And that's about it. Everything else is just kind of a press fitting. So thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe and let us know if we can help you with your water filtration needs.